Stop scrolling and listen closely, because what I am about to tell you will change the way you look at the aging predator forever. You've seen them, the silver-haired charmers, the elderly matriarchs, still playing the same games they played in their 20s. Today, we aren't just discussing aging, we are performing a clinical autopsy on why the predator refuses to retire from the hunt. Imagine a high-end sports car sitting in a dark, dusty garage. From the outside, the chrome still glimmers under the moonlight, but the internal wiring is being eaten by a slow, aggressive acid. That is the aging narcissist. They are reaching for the ignition one last time, desperate for a spark. The big haunting question is, why do they still crave the harvest when the fields are frozen? You've spent years believing that age brings wisdom, or that the fires of narcissism eventually burn out into a peaceful ember. You were wrong. For the predator, the bedroom was never about love, it was a clinical laboratory for extraction. Now that the lights are dimming on their own life, they aren't looking for a partner, they are looking for a biological reboot to avoid the void. Have you ever noticed that strange, vibrating tension in an elderly narcissist's skin? It's not just age, it's the frantic vibration of a soul that has run out of its own internal fuel. They are frequency pirates who have spent decades hacking into the spirits of empaths like you. In their twilight, the lag is becoming lethal, and they are terrified of the silence that is finally catching up. The secret knowledge they never wanted you to find is this: the narcissist is a somatic junkie who has worn out their own reward circuitry. They are staring at an empty syringe of ego, and they see your vitality as the only fix left in the pharmacy. They don't seek supply in old age because they want you, they seek it because without it, they dissolve into the grey static of nothingness. Think about the psychological weight of being a person who only exists if someone else is reacting to them. When the world stops looking at the aging narcissist, they begin to physically and mentally vanish. To stop this dissolution, they engage in high-risk, desperate behaviors. They are chasing a phantom of their youth, ignoring every red flag just to feel a single flicker of stolen life. Most people believe the predator is an invincible master of seduction, but in old age, they reveal themselves as emotional scavengers. They are gasping for air in a vacuum of their own design, and your empathy is the only oxygen tank they have left. They didn't love you then, and they don't love you now. They are merely trying to siphon your marrow to keep their own bones from turning to dust. Stay with me, because we are pulling back the heavy, cinematic curtains on the narcissist's internal famine. We are going to expose the hidden motives that turn their final years into a lethal game of biological Russian roulette. This isn't just a story about a bad lover, it is a psychological breakdown of an unraveling monster. You will never look at their need the same way again. Tonight, we perform the autopsy on their most guarded somatic secret. We are uncovering the biological and psychological debt they can never repay. You are not a victim of their longevity, you are a survivor of a spiritual heist that never truly ended. The narcissist is terrified of the dark because the dark is where the echoes of everyone they destroyed come back to haunt them. This first chapter is your sanctuary of clarity. You have been blaming your inadequacy for their constant, restless wandering, but the wandering is the narcissist's own internal decay. They lost the bet the moment you decided to seek the truth. As we move into the breakdown, remember, their agony is the most honest thing they will ever own. The lights are finally on the predator. To understand why the predator remains addicted to the hunt, we must analyze the somatic machinery of a body without a core. A narcissist is a human-shaped vacuum with no original signal. They are a collection of stolen echoes. In their old age, the echoes grow faint. They need the high-frequency data of a new conquest to prove they still exist in 3 dimensions. Metaphorically, the narcissist is a high-end hologram that requires a constant stream of energy from a projector. You were that projector. When the act is over and the lights are low, the image starts to glitch. By the time the somatic weakness of age takes hold, the projected image of the lover is flickering. They feel the rot becoming visible to you, and they must find a new lamp. Their hidden motive for the sexual hunt in old age is internal regulation. A narcissist cannot regulate their own emotions, they need to offload their toxic waste into a receptacle. They used you as a psychological kidney to filter the poison out of their system. But when the partners disappear, the filtration fails. The acid of their malignancy stays inside and burns their marrow. We must talk about the narcissistic void as a spiritual hunger that eats character. Because they have no internal pilot, they are blown by the winds of external validation. When the physical supply was high, they felt inflated. But in the silence of old age, they flatline. This flatline is a psychic death. Their addiction is the frantic attempt to find a new heart to pump for them. Imagine a star that has run out of hydrogen. It begins to contract and collapse under its own gravity. That is the narcissist in the end stage of their life. They have burned through the supply you provided, and the void is calling them back. They are isolated in a cold universe, even while they are lying next to you. Their fear is that you will feel the freezing temperature of their soul. Their internal chaos is a static storm of projective identification. In the quiet of the bedroom, they start to project their own self-loathing onto you. This is why they suddenly get mean or pick a fight right after being close. They need to turn you into the abuser, so they can feel like the victim again. This roleplay is the only way they avoid the mirror of their own malice. The aging narcissist is a somatic junkie who has worn out their nervous system. They've spent decades chasing the dopamine of conquest, but the law of diminishing returns has kicked in. The act no longer gives them the high it used to. They need more, faster, and dirtier to feel anything at all. This escalation is what leads them to the literal diseases they thought they were too elite to catch. In the dark, the narcissist experiences somatic dissociation. They literally lose the ability to feel their own presence without someone else's reaction. They need the friction of your soul to convince them they are solid. Without that friction, they feel like they are dissolving into gray static. They are ghosts in a human suit, haunting the beds of the living to find a pulse. Deep down, the narcissist finds human vulnerability to be repulsive. It reminds them of their own fragility. They despise you for the very love you give them. But in this state of prolonged hunger, the disgust is splashbacking. They are disgusted by their own face in the mirror. They are drowning in a sea of self-loathing, and every hand they reach for is a hand they will eventually bite. The psychological breakdown reveals an abuser as a closed system running out of entropy. They are cooling down to absolute zero in the absence of your heat. Their biological rot is the end of the motion. As we move into the turning point, you will see what happens when the empath finally switches off the lights. You are going to see the power shift from the ghost to the sun. The dramatic turning point arrives in the absolute silence of your indifference. It happens the moment you stop trying to explain why you are hurt. Anda behenti membela harga diri anda. You stop reacting to their restlessness. This is the psychological plot twist. They have been baiting you for years, fishing for a response. But today, the hook finds only deep, cold, still water. Watch the narcissists panic when the mirror refuses to reflect their fake image. They are addicts who have just been cut off by their dealer. They will try a hysterical Hoover, crying fake tears and promising heaven and earth just to see if the old strings still pull. But you are not moving. This stillness is traumatic to the predator. Merika mensium bor ketidacrelevanin merika sendiri. This is the moment of internal sovereign alignment where you realize the abuse was a filter they placed over your eyes. You take the filter off and see the abuser for what they actually are, a small, frightened, empty shell screaming for attention. The rot is visible now. You don't feel anger anymore, you feel clinical observation. You are now the scientist, they are the specimen. When rage fails, they pivot to strategic victimhood. They will use their age and their illnesses, the very ones they caught through recklessness, to guilt-trip you into returning. They are frantically trying to load the syringe of their shame and inject it into your compassion. But you see the calculation. You recognize the performance. By naming the demon, you strip its power. The silence of the empath becomes the acid that accelerates the rot. Without your empathy to heal the wounds they self-inflict, the abuser's internal injuries fester. They start fighting with the nurses, the neighbors, and the strangers. They are spiraling into chaos because they cannot exist without a calm center to disturb. You were that anchor, and you have cut the rope. They attempt a malignant discard to save the last shred of their ego. They announce to the world that you are the problem, that you are the one who is sick. This is a psychological confession of their internal failure. They are projecting their own death onto you. But you are relieved. You accept the discard like a promotion. You watch them walk out and feel the density lift. Show the shift in the energetic signature of your life. The moment the abuser is gone, the space sanctifies. You strip the bed, you burn the sage, and you open the windows. You realize that the need was a contagion they brought into your temple. Now that the carrier is gone, your vitality returns. You breathe into your center and feel the radiance of your own sovereign spirit. This is a psychological shift. You forgive the vessel for absorbing the rot. You realize your body was just trying to survive a toxic spill. You nurture the flesh with self-respect. You realize the relationship was a dark initiation that forced you to find your internal sword. You thank the trauma for breaking the mirror and revealing the sovereign. You have finally graduated. This is the moment of total detachment. You look at the past and you don't feel pain, you feel physics. You see the mechanism of the energy transfer. The abuser is a name you barely remember. They are a minor malfunction in the great machine of your evolution. The turning point is absolute. You are inhabiting your life with an intensity that is terrifying to the weak. Home. As we move into the collapse, remember, the abuser depends on your reaction to stay 3D. By withdrawing your focus, you have deleted their existence in your universe. They are going to panic. They are going to burn their own world down to get your attention. But you are no longer the firefighter. You are watching the fire from the high ground, safe in your own solar sovereignty. The collapse of the narcissist is a spectacle of absolute void. When the empath stops absorbing the rot, the abuser's false self shatters from the internal pressure of its own nothingness. They experience narcissistic mortification, the psychic death they've been running from since childhood. You will see them acting out with manic recklessness. Their mask is melting like acid. Their social consequences are swift and public. As the recovered empath moves through the world with quiet dignity and icy indifference, the abuser's smear campaign evaporates into the stench of desperation. The truth has its own gravity. People start seeing the pattern of the withered victims the abuser leaves behind. You are the witness who survived the clinical autopsy. The internal panic of the abuser becomes a manic screaming for new supply that no longer exists in your space. They look for you in every face they exploit, but no one can reflect the God image you once gave them. They are starving for the high-grade empathy your sacred energy used to provide, but the pharmacy is permanently closed. They killed the golden goose for sport. Watch the harsh truth of their new life. They look old. They look grey. They look brittle. The life force they stole from you has expired, and they have no internal reactor to generate more. They are cursed to repeat the same loop with lesser and lesser souls until they draw their last breath. They are trapped in a body that is closing down, haunted by the memory of the sun. The tone is brutally cold and analytical. The abuser is a parasite that underestimated the resilience of the empath. By moving on spiritually, you have executed the predator. They are the walking dead, carrying the corpse of their own ego. They hate you for surviving their spiritual warfare. Every breath of peace you take is a poison to their delusion. They are collapsing. Internal panic leads to pathological stalking of your happiness. They analyze your every post, searching for a sign of pain, a sign of return. But they find nothing but strength. This strength is traumatic to the abuser. It debunks their God complex. It proves they are just a glitch in your evolution. They are screaming from the shadows, trying to cast a spell you don't hear. The social discard concludes with the final isolation. The flying monkeys have woken up. The family has distanced themselves. The abuser is left alone with the ghost of the one they couldn't destroy. This isolation is the mirror they feared their whole life. In the silence, they are forced to hear the echoes of their own lies. They are stroking the air where you used to be. Brutally truthful analysis. The abuser failed because they miscalculated the resilience of the spirit. They thought they could starve the empath, but they only forced the empath to hibernate and evolve. Once you wake up and retain your energy, you are invisible to their manipulation. The narcissist is a shadow that cannot exist in the presence of your internal solar truth. Intensify the collapse. You watch their disintegration with a sense of sacred justice. You don't feel vengeance, you feel order. You see that the world is actually safe because you are the one who defines your reality. The abuser's rage is a distant noise that no longer reaches your frequency. You are living at a depth they cannot reach. The monster is finally, clinically, dead. As we enter the final truth, look at the ruin of the abuser and realize, you are the winner. The rot was just the shell of your evolution. You have found the key. You have opened the door. You have walked into the world and the world recognized you. The final truth is cinematic, empowering, and saturated with radiance. The collapse is complete. The sunrise is now internal. We have reached the final truth. The narcissist's hunt for sexual supply in old age is the final scream of a dying parasite that realized it could no longer feed on itself. You were simply the mirror reflecting their internal abyss. The night doesn't belong to the predator anymore. It belongs to the soul that has integrated its shadow and found its own light. You are safe now. Emotional closure comes from the absolute knowledge that the abuser never existed as the person you loved. You were in love with a reflection of your own empathy. Today, you have taken the reflection back. You are closing the case file on the predator. You have realized that their hate was a badge of honor. A being of darkness will always hate the sun. You are the sun. Healing is the cinematic slow burn of presence. It is the feeling of the ground under your feet, the sound of your own voice telling the truth, and the sight of a future that is unwritten and safe. You are reprogramming your nervous system to expect beauty and respect. You are learning that empathy is a superpower, not a sentence. You are finding your soul in the quiet. Empowerment is the quiet strength of the empath who refused to stay defined by the predator. You have seen the bottom of the abyss and you brought back the fire. You are unshakable. The narcissist's screams from the shadows are just background noise in the symphony of your life. You have changed the frequency. You are tuned into the voice of the universe. You are part of a global awakening of sovereign empaths who are refusing to be supply. We are collective strength. We are spiritually invincible. The narcissist's obsession with your energy was the last stand of a dying parasite. The age of the predator is ending. The age of the authentic is beginning. Your voice is a siren of truth for others who are still shaking. Imagine the final scene. You are standing on a mountain peak at dawn. The wind is blowing through your spirit, cleansing the last traces of the abuser's shadows. Below you, the dark valley of the narcissistic trap is dissolving in the light of the new day. Above you, the sky is exploding with colors you can finally see again. You are whole. You are complete. You are home. Cinematic closing imagery. The abuser is now a distant ghost, stalking the ruins of a life they burnt. They are screaming at the wind, begging the dust to become the host Kimberly. But the dust stays dust. You are flesh and blood, light and fire, moving at the speed of joy. You have found your tribe. You have found your peace. The necrosis was just a dark, heavy cocoon. The final truth deliverance. The narcissist tried to kill the empath because they were terrified of what would happen if the soul went sovereign. They wanted to keep you as a battery, but the battery exploded into a sun. You are magnificent. You are unstoppable. You have won the game by walking off the field. You have ascended beyond the manipulation. The ghost is dead. Reclaim your space. Reclaim your voice. Reclaim your right to walk the earth with confidence and dignity. The sexual killer, the psychological parasite, and the emotional arsonist have no power here in the presence of your light. Use it to warm your own life. Use it to create beauty. You are a generator of universal light, and the grid is restored. You are the master. The narcissist's hunt in old age is the biological debt they can never repay, but your victory is the radiant health that begins the moment you finally stop being their supply. Walk into your future with the fire of the chosen. Karina sang pamangsa telekahabisan waktu dan anda baru saja mulai hidup. The act is over, the mask is shattered, and you are finally, irrevocably free.